charge. Get down! He's coming straight for us.
On a blistering afternoon in the summer of 2018, the peaceful silence of the African wilderness shattered in an instant, replaced by raw, piercing terror, the sound of a life slipping away. Picture a place where the boundaries between human and wild blur into a fragile, uneasy balance, a realm where mighty creatures roam freely beneath endless skies, and the heartbeat of the wild thrums in every breath of wind, every distant roar. For some, it's a distant dream. For Mark Lenba, it was everything: his world, his passion, his very existence. Mark was no ordinary man. At 33, he was a living legend among the wildlife community in South Africa. Raised not amid city streets, but along the edges of untamed bushland, he had absorbed the rhythms of the land like second nature, the whisper of the wind through acacia branches, the faint rustle of grass signaling hidden movement, the scent of earth baked by relentless sun. This was his classroom, his sanctuary. From boyhood, he had lived intimately alongside the giants and predators of this ancient wilderness, walking quietly among them with a reverence few could match. More than just a safari guide, Mark was a gifted wildlife photographer. His camera was an extension of his soul, capturing moments few dared witness: the raw majesty of elephants, silhouetted against fiery sunsets, the flicker of a leopard's gaze from shadowed thickets, the silent grace of a stalking lioness. Guests came from across the globe, drawn not only by his encyclopedic knowledge, but by the calm authority in his voice and the genuine passion in his eyes. Fellow rangers often marveled at his uncanny ability to read the subtle signs: a flick of an ear, the slightest shift in posture, a tail's twitch signals from the wild's unspoken language. This deep connection was no accident. It was a calling. Mark was devoted to conservation, tirelessly educating visitors about the fragile balance of this world and the urgent need to protect it. His days at Leopard Rock Lodge, nestled in the sprawling Medway Game Reserve near the Botswana border, reflected this devotion. The reserve was a living mosaic of life: hidden leopards, thundering buffalo herds, and towering baobabs etched against endless blue skies. Here Mark thrived. Among the many creatures he revered, elephants held a special place. He spoke of them with quiet awe: intelligent, emotional beings with complex social bonds and memories that span generations. Yet despite their grandeur, he never lost sight of their vulnerability. To Mark, they were ancient guardians of the earth, monuments to a time before man. But that day, the calm was deceptive. The bull elephant Mark had long observed, a colossal 6-ton force of nature, standing over 10 feet tall, with tusks like gleaming spears, marked by countless battles, was in must. This was no ordinary bull. Must a fierce seasonal surge of hormones transforms even the gentlest giants into unpredictable, volatile forces. Testosterone levels spike wildly, and with it comes aggression, territoriality, and a reckless disregard for anything in their path. This particular bull was well known to the reserve's rangers, a solitary titan who patrolled the borders with a surly dominance. Recent weeks had seen his behavior grow erratic: sudden charges at trees, fierce posturing at vehicles, and an ever-present dripping of temporal gland secretions from his massive head, accompanied by a pungent, musky scent that filled the dry air. Staff warnings had circulated: stay clear, respect his space, be extra vigilant. But the warnings that day would take on a chilling new gravity. The oppressive heat pressed down, wrapping the land in a heavy, suffocating embrace. The scent of parched earth mingled with the distant promise of thunder. Around the reserve, an uneasy energy simmered. Other elephants jittered nervously. Even the usually steady bulls showed flashes of impatience. It was breeding season, and nature's wild rhythms pulsed with a dangerous intensity. Mark himself had noticed the bull's escalating boldness. He had witnessed it testing fences, shoving trees with brute force, and felt the tension firsthand as the bull mock-charged his safari vehicle bluffs that grew thinner with each encounter. Just days before the tragic day, the elephant had thundered close to the lodge's edge, trumpeting a warning that sent vervet monkeys scattering in panicked flurries. Guests, enthralled from a safe distance, snapped photos, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the spectacle. Mark's unease deepened. He's getting bolder, he confided quietly to a colleague, feeling his power, testing us all. In that tense moment, the fragile safety protocols stood stretched thin Against the overwhelming, unpredictable force of the wild, a raw reminder that even the most experienced can be caught off guard when nature unleashes its full might. The lines between controlled safety and wild chaos were dissolving fast. At Leopard Rock Lodge, the philosophy was always to blend seamlessly with the bush fences meant to discourage, not imprison. Open enough to let smaller creatures wander freely, preserving the immersive safari magic. But a 6-ton bull elephant in full must was a problem no fence could truly contain. The lodge manager had seriously considered moving guests temporarily, a precaution born of respect for the beast's growing aggression. But the elephant seemed to retreat only to reappear bolder each day, edging closer with a mounting confidence. These weren't careless warnings. They were the creeping realization that even the best human systems can crumble when faced with raw, unyielding wild power. Safety didn't fail all at once. It eroded slowly, piece by piece, worn down by the relentless force of one magnificent, terrifying animal. On July 27, 2018, the South African sun blazed down with an unrelenting intensity that belied the winter season. Guests at the lodge enjoyed a leisurely late lunch, the gentle clink of cutlery mixing with bursts of excited chatter under the open sky. Mark Lenba had just returned from the morning drive, greeting fresh arrivals with his trademark easy smile. Then at exactly 1:30 p.m., a low, deep rumble vibrated through the earth, causing glasses and silverware to subtly tremble. It wasn't thunder, not a vehicle, something primal, something vast. Heads turned, eyes narrowed, trying to pinpoint the source. 5 minutes later, a sharp crack echoed from the eastern fence line like a massive tree snapping under immense pressure. Another crack, then another. Panic rippled through the open dining area. Staff exchanged wide-eyed glances, knowing instantly what that dreadful sound meant. A terrified shout erupted from the kitchen. Elephant inside. The musk bull broke through. The bull had found a weak point or simply forced his way through like paper crashing onto the lodge grounds with furious momentum. His temporal glands oozed thick secretions, his trunk held high as he sniffed the air, eyes bloodshot and blazing with rage. His trumpeting roar shattered the afternoon calm, sending birds scattering in terrified flocks. Mark sprang into action. His mind, honed by years of crisis, quickly assessed the danger guests exposed, staff at risk, no time to wait for backup. He grabbed a small portable air horn, a standard deterrent, and moved deliberately between the rampaging beast and the frantic guests shouting, "Mark, hey, hey, get back away!" But the bull's beady eyes locked onto him with chilling intensity. The elephant saw not a man, but a challenge. It stepped forward deliberately, ears flaring wide, a clear warning of a charge to come. Mark blasted the air horn, but the sharp sound was swallowed by the elephant's fury, seeming only to enrage the beast further. At 1:41, the charge came raw, full force, and deadly. 6 tons of muscle barreling across manicured lawn, the ground trembling beneath its feet. Mark stood frozen for a moment, perhaps hoping the bull would veer away. Then the horrifying truth struck him. "Mark, no. This is different. This isn't a bluff." He turned to run, intent on drawing the beast from the lodge, but it was too late. The elephant slammed into him with bone-shattering force, knocking him to the ground. The air horn flew uselessly from his grasp. The attack was relentless footfalls, pounding tusks, thrashing, a brutal frenzy of destruction. A sickening, unforgettable sound echoed the crushing weight of immense power against fragile flesh. Witnesses behind reinforced glass watched in stunned silence, unable to intervene without risking their own lives. The attack, though brief, felt eternal, a nightmare of unstoppable fury. Then, as abruptly as it began, the elephant halted. For a chilling moment, it loomed over Mark's lifeless form trunk, twitching, breath ragged and heavy. With one final defiant trumpet, it lumbered away, retreating through the shattered fence and back into the wild. Silence crashed down, broken only by gasps and the distant fading trumpeting. Panic gave way to urgent action. Lodge manager called 911, paramedics now. The first frantic calls flooded emergency lines, chaos wrapped in desperation. Armed rangers arrived minutes later, faces grim beneath their hats, rifles raised as they swept the perimeter. The air hung heavy with tension and the metallic tang of blood. Mark lay still on the trampled grass, no pulse, no hope. Paramedics moved with somber efficiency, their sirens quiet out of respect for lingering danger. Mark Lenba was gone. His injuries, catastrophic, unsurvivable, were a grim testament to the raw power of nature unleashed. Witnesses, shaken and wide-eyed, gave fractured accounts. "He was so brave," one whispered. "He just went towards it to protect us." Another recalled the chaos. It all happened so fast. At one moment he was there, then a blur of gray. I can't describe the sounds. Law enforcement launched their investigation, a grim ritual against an unchangeable truth. Questions would be asked, safety protocols reviewed, but the stark reality remains sometimes even the most skilled, the most connected, can be overwhelmed by the relentless force of the wild. A man had died struck down by the very creature he had devoted his life to protecting. The news tore through the close-knit community of safari guides and conservationists like wildfire, quickly spreading beyond South Africa to national headlines, then rippling across the globe. Mark Lenba's death was no mere statistic. It was a wrenching loss that shook the hearts of all who knew him and reverberated through the wider world of wildlife conservation. Autopsy reports painted a grim picture of the violence that ended his life: massive internal injuries, countless fractures consistent with being trampled repeatedly by an elephant of staggering size and strength. There was mercifully no prolonged suffering. Death had come swiftly, an instant release from overwhelming brutality. Still, this small mercy did little to soften the raw grief. The media coverage was relentless. Bold headlines screamed "Safari Ranger trampled to death by elephant tragedy. At Medway Game Reserve, beloved guide lost." Photographs showed Mark alive, smiling, vibrant, his camera slung over his shoulder, standing proudly beside a safari vehicle. The stark contrast between those joyful images and the harsh reality of his death ignited fierce public debate. Animal rights activists voiced outrage. Some blamed the lodge for inadequate safety measures, while others championed the elephant's right to live, urging compassion for the animal, simply acting on instinct. Conservation groups mourned Mark deeply, even as they underscored the brutal hazards inherent in managing wild creatures in their natural habitats. Within Medway Game Reserve itself, grief mingled with urgent, difficult decisions. The musk bull, the very elephant responsible, remained on the loose, his hormone-fueled aggression unabated and posing an ongoing danger. After agonizing deliberation, the heartbreaking conclusion was reached: the bull had to be put down. This decision tore at the core of their conservation beliefs, but was unavoidable in the name of public safety and prevention of further tragedy. A team of seasoned rangers tracked and euthanized the bull swiftly and professionally. The act sparked protests from animal welfare groups who decried killing the elephant, arguing he was merely following his nature. Yet for those who understood the raw, unpredictable might of a musk bull, the decision was a painful but necessary measure. A thorough internal investigation followed, reviewing every safety protocol, fence line, and encounter. No negligence was found. Mark had acted with courage and instinct. The elephant had been driven by primal, raging hormones. Sometimes even the greatest care cannot prevent tragedy. The ripple effect was vast. Other lodges revisited safety procedures. Discussions flared on how best to manage musk bulls in protected areas and how to balance wild spaces with human presence. For Mark's family and friends, the loss was immeasurable. Tributes poured in worldwide, remembering him as a passionate conservationist, gifted photographer, kind soul, and true son of Africa. His death became a stark, visceral reminder of the untamed power that defines a wilderness so many seek to experience. Even beneath the brightest sun and in the most breathtaking places, danger lies in wait, an omnipresent force ready to reassert its dominance. Mark stepped into the path of a 6-ton force of nature, not out of recklessness, but from deep duty and love. His life was a testament to Africa's wild heart. His death a chilling testament to its merciless power. He lived and died as part of the very ecosystem he cherished. And in the silent, rustling grasses of Medway Game Reserve, the echo of that terrifying trumpeting and the man who stood against it lingers still. A brutal truth whispered on the wind in the heart of the wild man is merely a guest.